Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope we're all having a wonderful day out there, and we've got some pretty interesting stuff to talk about in today's video with a very active pattern ahead for much of the eastern United States. So again, a lot to break down here, so if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Like the video if you like it, and comment, let me know what you're seeing out there. It's been really cold the past couple of days. Good news and a little bit of a spoiler alert here, though. We do have some relief on the way, but don't get too excited because there are some signs that next week things could once again turn frigid and maybe even a big time snowstorm for somebody. So going to break all that down, and again, a lot of interesting things in the models here for the medium to long range. But before we get there, we've got some severe weather to get through tomorrow. So again, just a really active pattern from now through the end of November and to start December as well. With that said, though, let's go ahead and jump into your forecast. So again, taking a look at satellite imagery like we normally start with, sun beginning to set on much of the northeastern United States, and eventually, we'll cross the rest of the country here. But again, out there today, it was a very cold day for a lot of folks. Waking up here in Charlotte, we got down near 21, 22 for a lot of places in the city, and teens even out into the suburbs where we have a little bit less of that urban heat island effect. So again, a very cold morning for a lot of folks in the East Coast this morning. Now you will notice there is going to be some good news here that eventually works on through. So the first kind of big thing we need to know on satellite is kind of this cluster of clouds over the Four Corners region. This piece of energy is going to combine with some energy down here in the subtropical jet and eventually work in tandem tomorrow afternoon to really get some cyclogenesis to begin out here. And with that, we're going to have some big time severe weather threats out here into Texas going into tomorrow afternoon. But that system will bring severe weather, like I said, but also just a lot of rain for a lot of folks. So a lot of people going to be impacted by this storm system with severe weather, rain, and even a little bit of snow, depending on where you are at. So we'll definitely break that down throughout the first half of this video. Alrighty, taking a look again at current conditions out there, those watches, warnings, and radar, a lot of that lake effect snow we've been dealing with is beginning to taper off. So pretty dry through much of Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, and Pennsylvania today. A little bit of leftover precipitation up here into New York State and over the border into Canada near Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal, seeing some precipitation. But again, a lot less lake effect precipitation than we were seeing just a day or two ago. Now, outside of there, in terms of watches and warnings, we do have some fire risks to be concerned about here through much of eastern Tennessee, really the entire state of Georgia, into even eastern Kentucky here, dealing with some of those gusty and very dry conditions. So do not burn if you can avoid it here in the southeastern United States, as it's just been so dry recently and so windy. The good news, though, is that dry spell will end here going into the next couple of days as we get prepared for our next storm system. So taking a look right now kind of at that severe weather outlook for tomorrow, we do have an enhanced risk up for a lot of folks here into Texas and even parts of Louisiana and Oklahoma. But I really want you to be on your guard if you're in this orange circle here. So many places kind of near Houston, especially off to the north and to the east of the Houston metro area, we have an enhanced risk for severe weather, and that being driven by the risk of tornadoes tomorrow afternoon. So a bit of a conditional severe weather threat, but a very important one we need to be watching out for, as we have a lot of wind energy and instability that is going to overlap tomorrow in this part of Texas here through much of southeastern Texas. So got to be on your guard and got to be prepared for that chance of a tornado and even likely chance of a tornado here in that yellow circle on your map. Again, this is going to be just to the north and to the west of the Houston metro, but really all surrounding areas here in southeast Texas and southern and especially southwestern Louisiana under the gun for some strong to severe storms capable of producing tornadoes tomorrow afternoon. So definitely watching out for that. Alrighty, let's go ahead and time this out for you. So again, overnight tonight, things still relatively quiet as high pressure is continuing to dominate the pattern over the southeastern United States. Again, very clear skies, very clear night, and with that, another cold night for a lot of folks. But that will change going into tomorrow afternoon, and really as early as tomorrow morning, you'll notice precipitation beginning to build back out into eastern Texas as that low pressure further off to the west continues to crank up and strengthen during the day tomorrow. Now, moving this ahead into tomorrow afternoon, going into about 10 a.m. and about noon local time, that precipitation shield really begins to expand, and this is when we need to worry about the threat for some strong storms. So, again, down here, kind of into southeastern Texas, into western Louisiana, is where we're going to have the best ingredients for tornadoes. So, it's going to be a very messy day. It's going to have a lot of rain, but just the ingredients are so strong that even if the if the atmosphere stays relatively stable, we're still going to see enough wind energy to potentially produce some tornadoes. So again, very important there. But outside of the severe weather, still just a good old-fashioned soaking rain for a lot of people going into tomorrow evening. Again, this big shield of rain from Oklahoma City down towards Dallas, back up towards Little Rock, and even St. Louis getting in on some of that rain going into tomorrow evening and overnight Thursday into early Friday. So moving this into about midnight Central Time here tomorrow night into the very early hours of Friday morning, you'll notice, again, the severe threat should be relatively calming down by this point, but still a whole lot of rain here along this low pressure system to the north and to the east of that low pressure, seeing, again, some good old-fashioned rainfall, and it could be moderate to heavy at times. Now, by the time we're waking up early Friday morning, this is whenever things are going to change. At this point, again, any severe weather that is left overnight Thursday will be into sections of western and southern Louisiana by this point, and everyone north of there, just some good old-fashioned showers moving on through much of the Tennessee and Ohio River Valley. Friday morning, again, a lot of rain falling there, but on the northern side of this low pressure, we could be dealing with some wintry weather. So if you're watching from maybe northern Missouri into sections of northeastern Kansas into southern Iowa and even northern Illinois here, we're going to have a pretty impressive band kind of that sets up again on the northern side of this low pressure into sections of Michigan, Wisconsin, and kind of in this band. So as I move this ahead in time, you'll notice that blue kind of takes over a little bit, and eventually by the time we're getting into Friday morning and into Friday afternoon, could be seeing some snowflakes fall into northern Illinois, into central Michigan. Everywhere south of there, though, really again just seeing some good old-fashioned rainfall, and it will be a pretty showery day through much of Friday afternoon and even into Friday evening, those showers continuing up into the northeast through the Ohio River Valley and even into the southeast. Now, this low pressure system will begin to weaken a bit as we move ahead into overnight Friday and into Saturday. You'll notice this precipitation dies off a little bit and just becomes a lot more scattered in nature compared to what we're going to see tomorrow afternoon and evening. So again, I think overnight Friday into early Saturday could see definitely some showers through the Ohio River Valley, up into the northeast, back down through the mid-Atlantic and through the Tennessee River valleys, but as a whole, less precipitation than we're going to see for our friends back out towards Missouri, Arkansas, and Kansas are going to really see the bulk of precipitation from this storm system. Now, again, this is only one storm system, though, so as we move this ahead into the days following, we'll get another storm system that we need to kind of be careful of. Alrighty, so talking about some snowfall totals here, again, not a lot, nothing off the chart, but could see a dusting up to an inch or two through this kind of band, especially kind of here into central Michigan. I think having the best shot of some accumulating snowfall out of this storm system going into, or really through the next 3 days or so. So this goes out to early Saturday morning. All right, so that's kind of this weekend storm system. And actually, before we move on, let me quickly show you rainfall totals as well, because that is going to be important, and I forgot to add that graphic. So let me bring that up here for you really quickly. Alrighty, so again, out of just this first storm system, so over the next 72 hours or so, most of the rainfall that does fall, again, likely going to come kind of here through much of the Ohio River Valley and back down towards Louisiana, Arkansas, and East Texas, going to see most of the rain out of this first storm system. Again, though, that will change because we are going to get a secondary system that brings much needed rainfall to different folks. So let's go ahead and discuss that a little bit now. So before I kind of discuss this, I will say this is going to be a bit of a complicated forecast once we get into next week. So again, feeling very confident on tomorrow's storm system and how that evolves out through this coming weekend. But once we hit next Monday, the models are really kind of still all over the place. So a lot of digesting and analysis of these models are going to be important, and they're going to change a lot over the next couple of days. So again, going to preface this by adding that. So again, this is our latest GFS model. Here's that first storm system moving on through much of the Great Plains and into sections of the Ohio River Valley. That storm system again kind of dies off as it moves into the northeast going into this weekend. Now, as that's ongoing, going into early Saturday, we likely are going to get a pretty big plume of moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico that rides up through the southeastern United States. So if you don't get too much rain out of this first system come Friday through much of the southeast, don't fret, because here comes another storm system with a much more widespread rainfall going into early Saturday and into Saturday afternoon. So as we move this ahead, again, very moderate to heavy rainfall through much of Alabama, Georgia, into South Carolina, even into sections of southern North Carolina, getting in on that heavy rainfall action through the day Saturday before that kind of continues but tapers off a bit going into our Sunday afternoon. Now, once we get to Sunday afternoon, this is when things are going to really get a bit more complicated in terms of differences in our models. So, latest GFS has a couple of different pieces of energy hanging around here, and this is why our models are struggling a little bit. You'll notice we have kind of just so many different embedded pieces of energy here that are going to kind of fight for dominance a little bit over the northeast going into this weekend and into early next week. So the latest GFS model kind of shows this cutoff low really dominating that pattern a little bit going into next Monday, with very cold air coming in behind it. So this is one model. The GFS definitely showing some pretty impressive snow with this kind of cutoff low through sections of the northeast into the higher terrains and into the interior northeast. Going into next Monday and Tuesday, and then just kind of being followed up by some pretty cold air and some lake effect snow going into next Tuesday and Wednesday. That's the latest GFS for kind of early next week, and then after that, the GFS brings a deeper, colder pocket of air into the East Coast for the middle of next week. So that's one model. That's the GFS. Take that with a grain of salt. Think about it a little bit. Now let's take a look at the European model. European model, very reliable, does pretty good here in the medium range generally. So again, here's that weekend system, or I guess really late week system that we're experiencing tomorrow and Friday. That guy kind of moves on through, scoots on through, and brings those impacts we were talking about. And then sure enough, on the European as well, here comes that second plume of moisture going into Saturday afternoon into the southeast. So up to this point, models still agreeing pretty well on kind of, these first couple of storms. Now we get into, Sunday afternoon, still relatively similar, but you'll notice going into Sunday afternoon and overnight Sunday into Monday, European model has a lot more of a defined center of low pressure and in a very different spot than the GFS. The GFS at this point kind of had a bit of a cutoff low up here into Canada, just bringing some scattered snow showers into sections of the interior northeast. The European model has a very impressive trough of cold air, supplying cold air into the northeast and Midwest, and gets low pressure to develop along that trough. And you'll notice as I move this ahead, kind of rides along that axis of cold air and brings with it some cyclogenesis, strengthening of that storm system going into next Monday afternoon, and with it a very impressive snowstorm, borderline nor'easter, going into the interior northeast and even into some sections along the I-95 corridor come next Monday afternoon. So again, this is what the European model is showing for next Monday afternoon. Let's go ahead and look back at the GFS, see what it showed next Monday afternoon. And you'll notice a very different story. So here's the GFS, and here's the European model for the same time, and this is only about 5 days away now. So, a lot of details to be ironed out here for sure. And then the European model eventually cranks that storm up, moves it away, and much like the GFS, does bring a secondary pocket of cold air going into the middle and end of next week, just a little less pronounced. So again, as you can see here, definitely a bit of a headache to forecast, and this isn't too out of the norm for this time of the year. It's very often we see differences in the models. So what we like to do when we see that is take a look at the ensemble members. So we'll definitely do that here. Let's take a look first at our European ensemble members at 500 millibars and the height anomalies here. So what this is going to show you is where the European expects troughing to show up, and this matches pretty well with what that operation model run was showing come next Monday. Very impressive pocket of troughing here right into the Ohio River Valley. And should this occur, like this shows, we very well could get a cyclone to form along that trough and ride up the coast and out to sea, bringing some widespread snow potentially into the northeast with a look like this. So that kind of matches the operational run a little bit. And, definitely those dots are kind of connecting a little bit. Let's take a look at the GFS now and its ensemble members, or the GEFS, if you will, and look at the same kind of map here. So again, moving this into Monday afternoon, you'll notice relatively similar to the European model, maybe a little less pronounced of a trough, maybe a little bit more elongated here and not quite as sharp. So should this happen, definitely could bring a solution similar to what the GFS operational run showed, but honestly, all things considered, these two aren't too terribly far apart for next week. So right now, with that being said, I'm kind of leaning a little bit more towards the European model, just given one, its track record in this time frame, and also looking at this 500 millibar map for this time frame, it kind of spells a little bit of snowy trouble for somebody in the Northeast. Now, I'm not saying the I-95 corridor is going to get a massive blizzard and snowstorm, but what I am saying is I think the chance of somebody in the Northeast getting a pretty good walloping of snow early next week it definitely looks like a very distinct possibility. So another way to look at that is with the ensemble members' chance of seeing at least an inch of snowfall during this time period. So going into next Monday afternoon and Tuesday, our European ensemble member here, again, showing a pretty good area here with pretty high chances of seeing at least an inch of snowfall. Now you will notice the places that have the highest chance of that are into the interior and higher terrains of the Northeast, getting up near that 75% chance, but chances also there kind of further down towards the south. So if you go into western Massachusetts here, about a 50-50 shot here in the Euro ensemble members, and along the I-95 corridor, a slimmer shot, but still about that 20% chance of seeing at least an inch of snowfall accumulating. Now, taking a look at the same map, but with our GEFS ensemble members, again, a pretty similar picture, same kind of area, having that shot at some snow, although with the GFS definitely more confined towards the interior Northeast and into sections of Canada. So, some different places here being shown. The Euro ensemble members a lot further south with their chances of snowfall than the GFS, but nonetheless, there is a storm signal. So that is something to kind of grasp onto here, and I think is a very overall important key takeaway from this video. If you take anything away from it, definitely a storm signal for some sort of winter mischief come early next week in the Northeast. Alright, I'm going to run you through two more maps here, and it's basically what I just showed you, just a different variant of it. So this time, instead of looking at the chance of an inch of snow falling, let's take a look at the chance of 4 or more inches of snow falling. So again, we'll start with our European ensemble members, and again, a very impressive signal here. And once you get past 4 inches of snow, that's when things kind of get a little bit more important and a little bit more impressive. 1 inch of snow is one thing this time of year, 4 inches is another thing. So the European ensemble members showing a pretty good area of about 30 to 50% chance here in the Northeast of seeing at least that amount of snow. And again, those chances, although slimmer, still extending down towards sections of Boston, back towards, Connecticut, and even into northern Rhode Island. So very interesting there. And if we look at the same map with our GFS ensemble members, much lower, but still the chance that we could see that sort of snowfall into the interior Northeast. So again, the placement is the same here. The European model and its ensembles much further south and kind of elongated. GFS much more confined and further north. So definitely some very interesting things in the models going into next week. And definitely, no matter what, I do think we cool down going into later next week, especially that Wednesday through Friday time frame. So about that 7 to 10 day time period definitely looks like some cooler air moves on into the East Coast regardless of any winter weather. Alrighty, so just kind of again to summarize here, we've got this first storm system that's bringing some severe weather through Texas tomorrow, as well as a lot of rain for a lot of folks, and even a little bit of winter weather. That followed up by another storm system bringing some rain into the southeast going into Saturday and Sunday, and then all eyes turn into the Northeast going into early next week to kind of see what mischief should occur there. One more thing I will add, and I forgot to show a map on this, but definitely expect to warm up through the East Coast now through about Saturday, Sunday, and then after that, we'll see what happens with that next storm system. That could, again, bring cooler air next week. So definitely a warming trend through the next couple of days before things once again cool back down going into next week. Alrighty, well again, hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions maybe I didn't answer, feel free to ask me in the comments and I'll definitely try to get around to answering those. But anyway, have a great rest of your night and I'll see you all next time.